You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Are you ready to learn the 3 secrets to launching a successful podcast? Hi, I'm Bill, a recent client of the Podcast Mogul. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast but aren't sure where to begin, he's got you covered. He is hosting a free webinar where he will share the 3 secrets that can help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast without any fancy equipment or technical headaches. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot now and let him help get your podcast off the ground.
Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the Podcast Mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, the Podcast Mogul Phil Better, and today I am happy to have the host of the Purpose Driven Podcast, the mastermind behind the Purpose Driven Podcast, or Masterclass, and the Growth Now movement, Mr. Justin Schenck. Justin, thank you so much for being here.
Phil, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to dive in and hopefully share 1 or 2 things that your audience is like, hey, maybe this Justin guy isn't totally dumb. So that's always the goal here.
Well, with the amount of amazing people you have on your background that you've interviewed, I'm pretty sure you're not full of BS or anything, that you know a few things. Justin, could you give us a quick introduction about yourself? Let my audience know.
Yeah, man. So, I always like to say I'm a podcaster first. And I think I say that because everything that I do now in multiple businesses and speaking and my own live events all stems from the podcast itself, which I started 6.5 years ago. Back in the day when I would tell people I had a podcast, the response would be, "What's a podcast?" And now they roll their eyes and they go, "Oh, you have a podcast too?" And so it's changed so much, which I love, because I think podcasting is such a beautiful medium for people to learn, for people to connect, for people to grow. And I just feel really fortunate to have the success that I have. Like Inc. magazine listed me as a top 8 podcast every entrepreneur should follow, and so many great things. And so I just feel really, really blessed to do what I do and have the conversations I have. And like you said, the cool people on my wall, I get to call friends and some business partners. And so it's been quite the journey over the last 6.5 years.
Oh, I love that. I want to go to the beginning. What made you decide to start a podcast? Like, what was it that drove you to do this? Like, what was your why?
Yeah. So it's funny. The podcast idea came from a different why than what the podcast actually ended up being. So I was doing very, very well in the corporate world. I mean, if we went even further back in my life, I shouldn't have even been in the corporate world. I was a very terrible student in high school at a 1.7 GPA at one point. And then at 19, I got into direct sales because obviously college wasn't happening. And I did very well in the corporate or in the direct sales job. And really that gave me a taste of entrepreneurship. Like that gave me like, oh wait, there's a freedom here, right? I can create my own income and it's based off of how much I want to work versus how much I have to work and all these cool things. And I also at the same time got introduced to self-development and really realized that, hey, I actually do like learning, but I like learning things that I enjoy learning about, right? And how to better myself and all those things. And that was like the first nibble of entrepreneurship, but life happens and I had to get a corporate job to support myself. And I ended up working my way up a ladder in medical sales. But I always had this desire to be an entrepreneur. And I had 3 failed businesses. And I was like, clearly I'm doing this wrong. And I knew about the medium of podcasting. And I knew it was getting easier at the time to buy a microphone and record and all these things. So the original idea behind the podcast was I wanted to interview other entrepreneurs in order to pick their brain, figure out how they did it so I can implement that into my life. Because clearly at this point, I was doing it wrong, right? And I saw it as a great tool to network and learn. And then what ended up happening was 6 months before I launched the show, my mom lost a 20-year battle to opioids. And it opened my eyes to the fact that life is so much more than what society says is success. And so I started to have these conversations with entrepreneurs and thought leaders and actors and celebrities and so on and so forth. And we started to talk about, those rock bottom moments and overcoming them and really creating the life that you desired versus what society says you should go chase. And so the idea behind it was, hey, let me pick the brain of entrepreneurs. And what ended up happening was a heartfelt conversation with now over 400 people to really figure out, how do we find fulfillment in this life while creating the success that we desire? And so that was really where the journey began. And it's been a wild ride over the last 6.5 years.
Oh my God. You must have amazing stories. I can't wait. Wow. That's a lot of episodes. And I want to know, because you're building a business while you're running this podcast, time management must be something that's super important to you and must be like, you must live a religious calendar life.
It's a really good question. So time management is something that is key. It's something that I learned at a young age, like to understand to block your time. But I think the biggest thing that we learn or that people should understand with time management isn't about how much can I get done. For me, time management is how much fun can I have today? And I block off what I prioritize as important to me. And that is working out, that is spending time with my family, that is having a cigar, that is doing the things that I enjoy first. And then everything else is around that. Because look, I don't work to live, I live to work. Or I don't live to work, I work to live, right? And so I always immediately prioritize what fills my soul first. What are the things that are non-negotiable in my life? And then work comes in after that. I'm usually done work. Today is an exception because I'm literally back-to-back calls from, I don't even know when I started till after 5 o'clock today, but I'm usually done work around 2 p.m. every single day. And I do that because I'm very, very efficient with what I have to get done. I don't dilly-dally. I don't procrastinate. I sit down, I get the work done, and I do what I have to do in order to deliver a high-quality product to my clients, to my listeners, to everybody else in between. And so I always go, look, if time management for me first is, look, get the stuff that you want to do and put it on the calendar. And then everything else happens in between the margins, right? And so time management is very important, but I kind of look at it backwards as to what most entrepreneurs will say time management, right? I get up and I get to work and I do all these things. Yeah, I work fairly early. Like I get up right before 6 a.m. every single morning. I have a 2 cups of coffee, and then me and my fiance go for a 3-mile walk, and then I'm usually in my office right after that, and I get to work. But I do that to be super efficient and get to the things that I enjoy.
No, I that's great. Like, I think what people don't understand, when you start working for yourself, you get all this freedom. And it's kind of like going to university. You're going from a high school, rigid culture, which you know exactly where you're going to be at what time and that. And then you go to university where you have maybe a class at 8 a.m. and then you don't have anything until the end of the day, and you have to build your life around that. And when you're going into entrepreneurship, it's the exact same thing. And that's why I wanted to know about time management, because you're so busy and you've done so much. I was interested in that.
Yeah. And dude, real quick, I'll add to that. I'm so glad you mentioned the time freedom, because a lot of times people take that as, oh, I get to do whatever I want. No, you got to execute on the things you have to execute on in order to survive entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is hard. Entrepreneurship is stressful. There's a lot of things that you have to think about every single day. But that's why I believe in efficiency. I don't believe in the hustle culture of having to work 24/7. I'm just talking about when you're working, right? And you literally go, okay, what do I have to get done? So I have a to-do list every single day. Once I'm done that to-do list, I'm done for the day. And it's as simple as that.
Talking about your to-do list, I'm interested. Do you write it out before, the day before, the week before, or do you have this giant to-do list and you just go, okay, these are the 3 things I need to get done today, and then tomorrow I'll look at another 3 things?
Yeah, so it's a daily checklist for me. Before I leave my desk the night before or the day before, I go, what do I have to get done tomorrow? I put it on a list. I literally do it in like the Apple Notes where you can click things off when you're finishing them, because I feel accomplished. It's almost like, you get a treat when you're a kid when you're done. So those clicking those things off are good for me. But yeah, so I do it before I get done my work for the day, and then the next day that's the list I have to tackle.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I was just wondering. Also, great advice for me. Maybe I'll start doing that and make my life a little more efficient. Justin, when you started your podcast and you went from going, I'm going to pick these people's brains, to having heartfelt conversations and getting through the shitty parts of life. You must have gotten a whole bunch of tips to figure out how to get through those dark days, those hard days, because it comes in all entrepreneurs and everybody's life. Do you have one that would stick out that you would love to share with my audience?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Obviously, I've gotten so many words of advice and I learned through stories. So obviously so many great stories of entrepreneurship and just life in general and people overcoming some crazy things. So first, I'll say this: every single person has their own sets of adversity, and there's not one greater adversity than the rest, right? They actually did a study in kids, which is kind of crazy. So they scanned their brains, right? There was a rich kid in a rich neighborhood who the worst thing that he went through was some kids made fun of him in school. Then they took a kid from the inner city where his dad sold drugs and his mom got shot right in front of him. And when they scanned their brains, the trauma to the brain was exactly the same in both of them. So the bullying and the mom getting shot right in front of the kid, same trauma. So yes, we all have a ton of adversity to overcome. So the first thing we need to accept is life is happening for us and not to us. To get out of the victim mindset in order to then control our lives. That was a great advice, right? Understand that even the worst things in our life are happening for us. There's an opportunity inside of them, right? To be proactive from those things. The second part of that is an even better lesson. And this is actually the common thread behind every single conversation I had. I asked the same two questions to every single guest since day one. And one of the questions is, what is your definition of success? And the follow-up to that is, what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Oh,
and so the common, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, you can steal what you want. The 3 things, though, every single day was the common theme behind every single person I interviewed. Now, keep in mind, I've interviewed people from all walks of life, all levels of success, whatever. And the 3 things I realized was self-serving in some way, shape, or form. They were taking care of themselves in some way, shape, or form. And so I realized that you have to be, in order to be selfless in life, you have to first be selfish. And you have to make sure that you're doing the things for you first, right? And so from there, I created 4 things that I do every single day that are non-negotiables, that when I started to implement them daily into my life changed. My business grew, my relationships got better, I got healthier, like all these things. When I put them into my life and I made them non-negotiables, that was a life-changing thing for me. And so it's really a 2-part answer to your one question, right? It was one, first you have to get out of the victim mindset, right? But understanding life is happening for me. And the second thing is you have to make sure you take care of yourself because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Wow, jeez. Getting golden nuggets here. Over 400 episodes of gold just given right there. I love it. That is great. Like, yes, pouring from an empty cup. You can't do that. You need to fill yourself. Oh, it's just like everything is just hitting differently. I love when I have a moment like that with a guest. Do you have maybe a favorite episode that you've recorded in your podcast?
Yeah, man.
I don't want to say all the episodes are bad, right? But is there one that stands out?
Well, they're all terrible. So what's the best? What's the best of the worst? No, this is actually probably my number one question that I get asked, right? When I speak at events, there's always like somebody who's like, oh, who's your favorite guest or whatever. And I don't have an answer to that. They've all been great. They've all served in some way, shape, or form for me, for sure. But there's been moments, like pinch me moments, that I like to share, right? So like there's a guy named Fabio Viviani he was on Top Chef. He's a massive entrepreneur. I went to an event a number of years ago, and I remember, and I had just started the podcast at the time, and I remember seeing this guy speak. And at first, it stands out in my head because I remember going, "Who cares about a chef?" Like, I don't watch reality TV. Like, I was like, "Who cares about a chef?" I saw him speak, and I turned to my friend after he spoke, and I go, "I need to be friends with that guy." And within less than a year, he was on the podcast, and he's become one of my really, really good friends. So like little moments like that, where like you can sit down with people that you've admired, or you said, "Hey, I want that person in my circle," and you can kind of create that. So that's one. And then there's been a couple like young Justin moments of like young Justin would be so beside himself because you're having this conversation, right? Like Diamond Dallas Page, if you're a professional wrestling fan.
No, I know DDP. Come on.
Yeah. So he's been on the show, and that was one of those moments because I'm still a wrestling fan to this day. I still watch wrestling regularly. I'm not ashamed to say it. It's still real to me, damn it. And so, sitting down with DDP for over an hour and having a conversation with him and staying connected with him. And, in high school, there was a guy named Ricky Williams who got drafted, and the New Orleans Saints traded away their whole entire future to draft this guy. And he was like the big thing. And so it was a huge moment in sports being a young sports fan like I was when I was in high school, when he got drafted, he was supposed to be drafted by the Eagles, and all these things happened. And I'm from the Philadelphia area. And so Ricky Williams got drafted that year, and I sat down and interviewed Ricky Williams, and he was a Pro Bowler who got kicked out of the NFL for smoking weed. But to have those moments, because 6.5 years ago I decided to buy a microphone and plug it in and have some conversations. I think more than anything, it's the pinch me moments for sure.
Oh, I know. I love those pinch me moments. And like you said, there's probably 18-year-old Phil looking at me now going, we're doing this. We're living a life where we don't work in the corporate world. My God. Let's talk business side on this. And when did you decide to transform your podcast into like a business?
Yeah, it actually was decided for me, really. Like, of course, I think in the back of my head, I had a dream that the podcast would blow up and I'd, be my business, and then I'd speak, and, the things that I do now, which is crazy now that I've just said it out loud, but I think it was kind of an idea in the back of my head, but I never really thought it would ever become that. And so I own a number of different podcast businesses. So when people ask me, like, who are you? I always say I'm a podcaster first. The podcast itself is the center of the wheel. And then there's these spokes that come off. And so I own 3 different podcast companies that all kind of focus on different things. And then the other side is my brand, which is my live events and speaking and the motivational side of things. But the way it worked was the podcast took off. It started to grow organically, and I was having success, and it took some time. Don't get me wrong. Like, it was like a year plus before there was any kind of growth on the show, and then started really getting some growth. And then Inc. magazine happened, and it exploded, and people will come to me and like, hey, talk to me. How do I do this podcast thing? And I started helping people. And I remember a moment where a guy, I spent some time with him, about 45 minutes. And I said, do this, whatever. And he goes, wow, I've really liked this conversation. Can we continue? I'd like to continue it. And I said, sure. Like, I was about to be like, yeah, let me know whenever you want to chat. We can. And he goes, well, how much? I was like, oh, wait, hold on. People will pay me for this. And so I made up a number on the spot. He paid me for 5 months in advance. And that's kind of started this, like, oh, well, okay, maybe the podcast itself might not be the business, but maybe I can do something along those lines. And I still to this day own a podcast coaching and production company. And, it's just a cog in the wheel, really. But it happened accidentally, really. Like, I just kind of said yes. And so now when I talk with other fellow entrepreneurs that are in the beginning of the stages, I always go into a season of yes. When you don't really have anything going for you, when things feel stale, it's okay to say yes to opportunity that you didn't necessarily see that being the vehicle or the driving force, right? That then funded my brand growth. That funded, me being able to be Justin Schenck, the speaker and podcaster. And so, yeah, man, I think it happened accidentally, and I'm so grateful that it did.
I love that. Yeah, no, that is an amazing feeling when you wait, people will pay us to podcast. When you're a podcaster, you just don't understand, like, and people pay for the convenience. Like, I don't want to spend 20 minutes searching on Google when I can pay you $20 to do it for me or give me the knowledge. Yeah, no, that's great.
Somebody better pay me more than $20 for 20 minutes though.
Yeah, no. Yeah, $20 a minute maybe. Justin, coming into the world, like, how did you land your guests? Like, how did that first couple of big guests get landed on your show?
6.5 years ago was a different world, right?
Yeah.
There weren't many podcasts and there certainly weren't many podcasters brazen enough to ask. And so I actually just gave a talk at PodFest back in May. I think it was May or just into June, maybe. And it was in Orlando, Florida. And I spoke and I literally gave a talk on this. Like, how do you land big name guests in order to leverage their brand? And the first thing I said was your first tip is to ask. You'd be surprised. And I now have clients with millions of followers, and it's kind of crazy to understand that I work with these individuals, but ask. I know what their inbox is like. It's not filled with quality stuff. And honestly, it's not overflowing with messages like you'd think, because most people are like, oh, they're not going to read it, so why would I message them? And so just ask is this tip number one. So back 6.5 years ago, when you're asking somebody to be on a podcast and it was a new thing, it was exciting. I mean, we had big people from episode 5, like Brian Scudamore, the CEO of 1-800 Got Junk was episode 5 on my show. And then we had a Super Bowl Hall of Famer, was like episode number 16. And so kind of crazy stuff like that. But now there is a way to do it specifically how you get people on the show. And it's to ask a very, very specific way. And really the idea behind the ask is to remove them from the scenario and remove yourself. What I mean by remove them is, okay, they might be promoting something great, but them coming on your show, that's not the purpose. Like, cool, you might sell another book or two. Awesome. And it's not about me. It's not about me growing my audience. It's not about me anything. It's about the audience itself. And what I found with most high level individuals and successful people is that they're giving and they want to give as much as they can. The easiest thing for them to give is their story, their motivational tactics, etc. And so I use a specific line in my ask, which is, I would love it if you would take some time out of your day to help inspire my audience. And that line itself is the game changer because it removes you and it removes them from the equation. And it's really about making an impact in the world. And then that really is the secret. There's a free download that I have. I don't remember the link. It's something like purposedrivenpodcaster.com/invite, I think, where people can go and see literally exactly what I send to every single person. I'm not here to hide any secrets. Like, that is literally what I do from top to bottom, exactly what I send to every single person, and why I'm still to this day able to get people on my show.
I love that. That's such a simple ask. And who doesn't want to share their purpose and then share that with their audience? And that I'm definitely going to be sharing that. This episode's going on both feeds, the podcast series and the digital entrepreneur, because it's gold for both of them. We're coming up to the end, which I hate because I don't want to end this conversation. Justin, I'm having so much fun talking with you, and I'm glad we were able to get you on the show. But the two last questions I'm going to have for you is there a book that you suggest entrepreneurs or people looking to start their entrepreneurial journey to read before they jump into this crazy world of ours?
Yeah, man. You know what? So yeah, there's books, right? The E-Myth is really, really good for startup entrepreneurs and people looking to dive into it. But the end of the day is, I think there's more than just tactical books that you can read. And so the first book that was ever handed to me at the age of 19, which allowed me to open my mind to, like, I control the narrative, is a book called Who Moved My Cheese? I highly recommend, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, to read this book. It's essentially, it's a very quick read. You can do it in 1 or 2 sittings. And it's the idea that things are going to change around you. That doesn't matter. What matters is how you react to that change. And the way you kind of take that and put that into the entrepreneurial world, guess what happened in 2020? The world shut down. 40% of my income went away. But I already had the mindset of, like, things are going to change because it's out of my control. But how can I react to that to make sure that it benefits, everybody? And so that book, Who Moved My Cheese, is the book that I recommend every single person read. And again, it's super quick. And it's an older book, but it's always the book I recommend. And it's so funny. Every single time I recommend it, somebody reaches out to me and goes, yo, I got that book. So I think that guy owes me like a royalty check or something.
At least a couple dollars sent your way for the extra books that you help sell. And now, because you're a podcaster, and I love podcasts as well, why I podcast, is there a podcast that is on nearly your daily, like it's your go-to, like you will never miss an episode of this podcast because you love it so much?
Yo, I've got a secret to tell. I'm not a huge podcast listener. And it's so funny because most people think, like, I listen to all these podcasts and so on and so forth. Now I listen to Joe Rogan, on occasion if I like the guest. I love Joe Rogan as a host. I watch a lot of interviews, whether it be short form, long form, and it's not necessarily just because I like the specific podcast. And I'll tell you why I watch interviews. I love the art of the interview. I love how you can sit down with somebody and, for lack of a better term, disarm them, make them feel comfortable enough to share their pain points, make them feel comfortable enough to crack jokes with you, make them within a short amount of time want to be your friend. And the reason I always reference Rogan is because I think he's the master of this. And a great example of this is an episode that he did. He just recently came out. He interviewed Mark Zuckerberg. So obviously, if you don't know who that is, you live under a rock. He's the founder of Facebook, or now Meta. And he literally started the interview out with saying something along the lines of, let's talk about the Oculus, man. It's really cool. It's bizarre. I put it on. It's awesome. Like, it's a whole new thing. And it literally disarmed Zuckerberg from the beginning, where he's like, wow, this guy's on my side, or he's not trying to get any dirt out of me. And by the end of the interview, Zuckerberg admitted that the FBI came to Facebook and told them to suppress information, right? Like, the idea that you could have those types of conversations and the art of doing it a specific way. I love absorbing interviews for that reason. And then also if I really like the guest, I'll pay attention because obviously I love absorbing from people that I admire.
I love that. Okay. Yeah. No,
I know that's not the answer you were looking for, man.
No, but it's an interesting as a podcaster and an interviewer, I never looked at it the same way. And I see Joe Rogan, and yes, he's a master. Did I just drop out?
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay. He disarms the guest, like you said, with the Oculus, going straight into saying, hey, I want to be your friend. I don't want to be confrontational. And he's one of the few that can do that so easily with a varied amount. And so I like looking at that. I think I'm going to start doing that and understanding interview podcasts more. My last question before I let you promote let my audience know where they can find you is, when was the last time you tried something for the first time?
Oh, I didn't know you were going to ask this. When's the last time? Oh, I'll tell you what. Back in June, me and my now fiance, I actually proposed to her like 2 days before this experience. So we went on the trip as boyfriend and girlfriend. We came back as fiancés, as the French say. So we went and we stayed at this all-inclusive resort in Key Largo, which is in Florida. I don't know where you're from. Where are you from?
Montreal, Canada. Just a little north of you guys.
Canada. I knew it was Canada, man. I heard it in your voice. So Key Largo's in Florida, and we went down for a week, just her and I, without the kids, and we went swimming with dolphins. And it was the first time I'd ever swam with dolphins, and it was the most amazing experience ever. And so, fun thing to know about me is that I love trying new things. I love adventure. I love going out and trying cool things. But I'm very rare to go, okay, I want to do that again. Let me do that again. I would swim with dolphins every day of my life for the rest of my life. It was the coolest experience. Like, dude, like I can't even explain it. If you've never swam with dolphins, go do it. I don't know if they have dolphins in Canada, but if they do, go swim with them.
It's a little cold for us to have dolphins up here.
But with that being said, that was the last time I tried something new for the first time. And so, yeah, swimming with dolphins. I got to do something, but that's too long ago. Now I feel like I got to go do something for the first time again.
Well, maybe this will inspire you too. I'm going to jump off screen here, Justin. I want you to let my audience know where they can find you, how they can support you. So the floor is yours.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I always like to say is wherever you're listening to the show or watching it, search the Growth Now movement. If you like what I have to say or what my guests have to say, click the subscribe button and come on the journey with me, because that's what this is. It's me on a journey. Just come along with me if you're interested. If you are a young entrepreneur just getting started, I do have a community called Growth Now Community, which is only $47 a month. There's no commitment. You can go month to month if you want. We're bringing guest mentors, like some of the amazing guests I've had on my show will come and share their wisdom for an hour. You can ask some questions, but we have weekly calls where we break down how an entrepreneur like yourself can make a bigger impact while growing their income. So if you go to growthnow.community, you can check that out. And I would love to see you in there and get to know you over there. And like I said, let's go on this journey together.
Awesome, Justin. I can't thank you enough for being a guest on the show. Your stories, sharing your moments with us was amazing. And I'm looking forward to, unfortunately, stealing those tips, those 2 questions from you, because I think that's going to be amazing for this. But again, thank you so much for being an amazing guest.
Phil, thank you so much, man. This is great.
Excellent. To my audience out there, make sure you check the show notes down below to support Justin. And remember to always invest in yourself.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time to take the next step. When you're ready to dive deeper into how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast, Phil's got something special for you. Join him for a free webinar where he'll reveal the 3 secrets that have helped countless entrepreneurs succeed in podcasting. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot, and let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.